Let us pray. Lord, you don't give us checklists to prove ourselves. You ask us to have faith in you. That faith is genuine and strong when it guides our actions, when it changes how we behave and how we think. Lord, accept us today, mold us and shape us to be more like you, and show us how our faith is manifested in how we treat others. Amen.
We ask our guests to continue to stand and join us for the flag salute. Please join Assembly Member Olson as she leads us in the pledge. Ms. Olson.
Members and guests, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, February 24, 2011. The Assembly met, and I am Honorable Speaker Fiona Moss, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly, Presiding Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk, reading Clerk Timothy Moore. Reading, the roll was called. Sajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berryhill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Davis.
Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Messages from the Governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly members Bradford, Hill, Huffman, and V.M. Perez to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly members Alejo, Harkey, Mitchell, and V.M. Perez to speak on adjourned memory.
Without objection. Mr. Bradford, would you like to introduce your guest? Members, your attention to the rear of the chamber, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm honored today to bring forth a renowned jazz artist and musician that is known worldwide and part of our Black History celebration here in the state of California and part of the Legislative Black Caucus, as well as joining our colleagues on the Senate and presenting a resolution to none other than Mr. Herbie Hancock. And he's at the rear of the chamber. But just real quickly, Herbie Hancock has been a jazz musician in this country for well over 50 years. He's played with some of the greats from Miles Davis, you name it. He's been there, Duke Ellington. And if you know, he won 14 Grammy Awards. So I think that is deserving of a round of applause in and of itself. And as we celebrate Black history and various genres of music, there's one that the African American community can truly lay claim to, and that's the field of jazz. It was truly invented and created here in the United States by Black musicians, and he is a fine example of that music genre, and it's living on, and we're just honored that he is here with us today. Some of his great hits are Watermelon Man, Cantaloupe Island, Maiden Voyage, Rocket, on and on and on. We've all listened to them, and if you haven't, you can come up to my office. I have them downloaded on my iPod, and I'll be more than happy to play. But real quick, some of the accomplishments, and listen, folks, please. In 1969, Herbie Hancock composed the soundtrack for the Bill Cosby animated children's television show Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, titled Fat Albert's Rotunda. The album was mainly an R&B influenced album with strong jazz overtones. On January 18, 2009, Herbie Hancock performed at We Are One concert, marking the start of the inaugural celebration of American President Barack Obama. Hancock also performed the Rhapsody in Blue in 2009, the Classical Brit Awards with classical pianist Lang Lang. Hancock was named as Los Angeles Philanthropic Creative Chair for the Jazz for 2010-2012. In June 2010, Herbie Hancock released his newest album, The Imagine Project. Herbie Hancock is best known as a solo artist, but his works include, again, Cantaloupe Island, Watermelon Man, later performed by dozens of musicians, including bandleader Mongo Santa Maria, Maiden Voyage, Chameleon, and the singles I Thought It Was You and Rocket. In 2007, his tribute album, River, The Joiny Letters, won a 2008 Grammy Awards for the Album of the Year, only the second jazz album ever to win such an award. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Herbie Hancock.
Okay, members, we're going to go to business on the daily file. Second reading, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 36 and Assembly Bill 50.
File item 3, ACR 13. Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. ACR 13 proclaims today...
Clerk will read. Members.
Assembly concurrent resolution 13 by Assembly Member Huffman relative to rare disease today.
Mr.
Thank you,
Huffman.
Madam Speaker. ACR 13 proclaims today Rare Disease Day in California. Rare diseases are, by definition, the diseases that affect less than 200,000 Americans. And while each disease may not affect that many people numerically in our country, taken together, they affect more than 30 million Americans. And some of the more well-known diseases we're talking about include Lou Gehrig's disease and Huntington's disease. Unfortunately, many of these obscure diseases lack sufficient understanding and subsequent treatment options, and it forces patients to bear the sole cost of fundraising and research for these debilitating conditions. An FDA report found that only a few hundred of the 7,000 identified rare diseases have an approved treatment. So the purpose of this resolution is to recognize that rare diseases are a public health concern, to raise awareness, and also, hopefully, to help improve funding for future research in this critical area. Thank you, Madam Speaker. California's growing biotechnology industry conducts fundamental research in this area every single day in order to expand knowledge and treatments for these rare diseases. And I'm actually honored, Madam Speaker, to be joined today in the rear of chambers by one of those companies, BioMarin, from my district, who's doing terrific work and is a world leader in the area of research and treatments for rare diseases. With that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Huffman, would you like co-authors?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Huffman is asking for co-authors on the first roll. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Hill, for what purpose do you rise?
To speak to the ACR 13.
Okay, clerk will strike the roll. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I want to thank Assemblymember Huffman for authoring this important resolution. As chair of the Select Committee on Biotechnology, I toured BioMarin last year and was amazed by their treatments and state-of-the-art facilities. In fact, BioMarin also has a facility in my district in the city of Brisbane. They represent many homegrown California biotechnology companies whose goal is to improve the lives of those impacted by rare diseases. It's important that we in the legislature support this important industry for all of the benefits they bring, from saving lives through their discoveries to creating jobs in research and development and manufacturing right here in California. So thank you, Mr. Huffman. Thank you to BioMarin for being here today, and I also ask for your aye vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. Members, the first roll will be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. For the record, there are 67 co-authors. We can take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 5, H.R. 7. Clerk will read.
House Resolution 7 by Assemblymember Bonnie Lowenthal relative to California Teen Safe Driving Week.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This resolution proclaims March 6th through the 12th as Teen Safe Driving Week. The statistics are startling. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for teens, accounting for more than 1 in 3 deaths. Teen drivers are 4 times more likely to crash than older drivers. In 2009, more than 3,000 teens were killed. That's nearly 10 a week. And more than 350,000 were treated in hospital emergency rooms for injuries suffered in motor vehicle crashes. 75% of all fatal teen collisions are caused by reckless and distracted driving, and about 25% of fatalities involve drugs and alcohol. We need to change these sad statistics. By observing Teen Safe Driving Week, we can promote the practice of safe driving among teen drivers and improve the safety of all of our communities. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on the resolution and that the first roll be open for co-authors.
Ms. Olson.
Thank you. I stand to support this resolution. I worked on the Teen Driver Safety Act when it was first passed into law on behalf of Senator Tim Leslie, and literally thousands of teenagers' lives have been saved in the past decade. So I urge my colleagues to vote in support of this measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, we will open the first roll for co-authors. First roll will be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. The record will show that there are 70 co-authors. We can take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. Okay, we're going to move to adjourn in memories. The following members were approved to adjourn in memory today: Mr. Alejo, Ms. Harkey, Ms. Mitchell, and Mr. V. Manuel Perez. Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I respectfully request that we adjourn in memory today in honor of Jack Forbes, an acclaimed author, activist, and professor emeritus of Native American Studies at my alma mater at UC Davis. He was born in 1934 in Long Beach of Powhatan, Lenape, and Delaware Lenape Indian heritage. He passed away this past Tuesday, February 23rd, at the age of 77. Mr. Forbes dedicated his life to teaching, writing, and advocating the history and contributions of Native Americans. At a political, dynamic time due to affirmative action, the takeover of Alcatraz Island by the American Indian movement, and the largest student protest of the 1960s, Forbes joined the UC Davis faculty in 1969, emerging as one of the founding leaders of the campus's Native American Studies and Ethnic Studies programs, which began that same year. In 1960, he developed proposals for Native American Studies programs for an indigenous university. It was from Forbes' vision in 1971 that led to the establishment of DQ University, the Ganahuida Quetzalcoatl University, several miles west of UC Davis. It was the first all-American, Native American, and Chicano tribal college in California, and only the second tribal college in the United States. Forbes is survived by his wife, Carolyn, his son, Kenneth, and his daughter, Nancy. And today, members, we pause for this prolific leader and honor him for his part in developing Native American and ethnic studies programs throughout our country and helping create the first Native American Chicano tribal college in California. Thank you very much. I ask to adjourn in his memory.
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise today to adjourn in memory of a very young woman, a 17-year-old by the name of Taylor Griffin Galloway. I received an email to my personal email from Speaker Emeritus Karen Bass, and it touched me personally because she talked about this young lady's passing in relation to her own loss, because Taylor was also killed as a result of an automobile accident. Taylor was a senior at Dorsey High School and was on the cusp of fulfilling her dreams of attending college. She had just received a $30,000 scholarship to Howard University. She intended to become an attorney. Her goal was to fight against the injustices she saw in her community of South Los Angeles. Taylor was one of Community Coalition's strongest leaders. She was a youth activist and was a strong advocate with regard to mental health issues in South LA schools. Nearly every week, Taylor could be found at the Coalition working on various campaigns, speaking at rallies, and leading various efforts to bring more resources to South LA schools, improve the quality of education, and build stronger unity between African American and Latino youth. Taylor was particularly, again, a strong and outspoken advocate for increasing mental health services and resources for she and her classmates in South LA. She, along with other SEA leaders, launched the Healthy Minds Now campaign, whose goal was to raise awareness and support for the need to have these mental health services. Taylor, again, who was only 17 years old, is survived by her mother, Tamika, and her sister, Ashley. Please join me in adjourning in memory of Taylor Griffin Galloway.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, members and Madam Speaker. I would like to adjourn in memory of Mara Steves, a resident of Laguna Niguel. On February 13th, Mara was enjoying her Sunday run when she was tragically struck by two colliding vehicles, and she was trying to corral a stray dog that was running through traffic, and I think you may have read about it in some of the local papers. The two vehicles actually crashed on the sidewalk, which was where she was at the time, trying to help a stray dog. She's the mother of two teenagers, and she was 48 years old. Moira was the PTA president for Marion Burgesson Elementary School from 2005 to 2008. Moira was also an avid jogger, a loving mother of two, and the leader for her neighborhood association. Outside of her community involvement, Mara was known for her wonderful sense of humor and her caring nature. Her legacy will live on as contributions made in her name are going towards refurbishing the Marion Burgesson Elementary School Theater. She will be missed dearly by her family, friends, and community. I ask that we adjourn in memory of Mara Steves. Thank you.
Mr. V. Manuel Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise today to adjourn in memory of a remarkable woman, an astonishing woman and personal friend of mine, Ms. Margarita de Necochea of Calexico in Imperial County. Ms. de Necochea passed away earlier this month on February 12th at the age of 89 years old from heart failure. She's a woman who left an indelible impression on those who had the great fortune to have known her. But she also was a tremendous presence in the civic life and spirit of Imperial County. In her professional life, she was a school librarian, serving Calexico High School for nearly 30 years. And at the same time, while serving for the city of Calexico as a librarian and for its school district, she was also a mentor to many generations of Imperial Valley youth, impressing upon them the value of education and hard work and service to one's community. I remember meeting her when I was first campaigning, and she talked about Martin Luther King Jr., and she talked about the importance of giving back to community. And that reminded me of what Martin Luther King Jr. would impress upon us is the community of man and giving back to our community. In particular, she also worked with many young women and trying to motivate them to better themselves and so that they would also continue their education. Now, my story with Ms. de Necochea goes back before I was even born. You see, my mother was born in Jalisco, and when she immigrated from Mexico, she ended up living in Calexico, California with my grandmother and a few of my uncles and my aunts, and she was the oldest. Because she was the oldest, my mother had to work at a young age. She had to work in the fields. Every once in a while, when she had an opportunity to go to school, she would go. But it was that one day when she went to high school, Calexico High School, where Ms. de Necochea saw my mother and asked her, "How come you're not coming to school more often? Is there anything I can do to help so that you can come to school on an ongoing basis?" My mother said to her that, "I have to work." Ms. de Necochea took it upon herself to go to my mother's home, my grandmother's home, to talk to my grandmother and to talk to my mother to see if there's any way that anything that she can do in which would allow my mother to go to school. My mother tried, but ultimately at the end of the day, they had to make ends meet. So she had to quit school. But what's so interesting about all that is that Margarita de Necochea's lessons were not only instilled and engraved in my mother's heart, but also, because of that, my mother instilled that in her sons and in her daughter. As a result of that, I was able to go on to school and graduate and go on to higher education. But I say that to you because Ms. de Necochea was that powerful to the point that she spoke to my mother and to many other young women at the time to encourage them to go to school. And even if perhaps they did not have the opportunity to go on to school because they had to work at a young age, those lessons learned were engraved in their hearts and their minds and their souls. Mr. Necochea was a community icon, whether it was advocating for youth or for the historic preservation of our historic Carnegie Hall or Carnegie Library, feeding the homeless on numerous occasions, and as well serving on many boards and commissions in Imperial County. And I need to also state that Mr. Necochea did a lot for farm workers. She believed in the farm worker movement. And through her work, on behalf of Cesar Chavez and his legacy, she continued to do what she could to feed farm workers and to support them with programs. She and her husband, Nick de Necochea Castro, who died in 2002, leave behind a tremendous legacy and their 7 children, 18 grandchildren, 24 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren, some of whom are with us today in this gallery. I believe Gordy is here. Thank you for being here, Gordy. Gordy and his family proudly followed the same path of achievement and service charted by Margarita and Nick, their mother and father. Members, I hope you will join me in appreciating the full and rich life of Miss Margarita de Necochea. She will truly be missed by her civic work, philanthropy, and genuine commitment to making Calexico and the state of California a much more better place. I ask you for a journey in memory in her honor. Thank you, members.
Thank you, members. Please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. The session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, March 1st, check-in session. Wednesday, March 2nd, check-in session. Thursday, March 3rd, floor session at 9 a.m. Friday, March 4th, no floor session, no check-in session. There is a reminder that tomorrow, Tuesday, March 1st, is the deadline for members to file their FPPC Form 700 with the clerk's office by 5 p.m. There is a Rules Committee meeting upon adjournment in the Rules Committee room. Upon adjournment of the Rules Committee, the Republican caucus will meet in the Rules Committee room. There will be a Democratic caucus immediately following adjournment in the members' lounge. And there will be a reception for Mr. Herbie Hancock today at 1:30 in room 211. Everyone is invited. I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves. Ms. Conway seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Thursday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. Quorum call is lifted. Okay.